My master will help me with my homework, said classmate A. Classmate B, my master bought me breakfast before. Classmate C. And you, Su Hang. Su Hang. My master gave birth to 6 children for me. Classmates. What? After traveling, Su Hang unexpectedly met a beautiful woman and had a one-night stand, but there was no contact afterwards. 1 year later, when Su Hang became the acting teaching assistant at the university, he discovered that the beautiful woman had become his own instructor. What's even more shocking is that he gave birth to 6 children. 6 treasures in 1 litter. Are you a sow? How can you raise it? Fortunately, the Shenhao Daddy system was bound in a timely manner. Change diapers, reward. 1 sports car. Teach children to speak. Reward. 1 house. Take your child to the park. Reward. Millions of checks. Su Hang. Wife, can you still have children? I need to raise 10. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1, 6 Children. Begging for flowers. Begging for. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Huaxia, Magic City. Maoye Wamiida Hotel, 22nd floor, Sea View King Bedroom. Hiss. Su Hang sat up drowsily with a hangover on his head, picked up the Voss mineral water on the table, and poured it down ton by ton. Hiccup. A full hiccup came out, and Su Hang felt much more comfortable. I drank too much last night, and his face was numb in half. Su Hang touched his profile and looked to the right. Why is there still someone lying next to me? Black shoulder-length hair, with a small hemorrhoid on the slender neck. Call out. Su Hang took a deep breath. Fortunately, she's a woman, otherwise Su Hang would have to quickly go to the proctology department to have a look. After calming down, Su Hang carefully looked at the people around him. Well, she's a beauty. Long eyelashes, small nose, and red earlobes exposed to sunlight, revealing fine hairs. And most importantly, it's her first time. Because there are blood stains on the sheets. This beautiful face, in my opinion, is not at a disadvantage. Su Hang had a mischievous smile on his face as he looked at the girl's pink lips. Is there anything else that is pink? After all, I don't remember anything last night, just savor it, savor it. At this thought, Su Hang's hand reached out to the girl to cover the blanket. Coincidentally, it was at this moment that the girl's watery big eyes opened. Su Hang's hand stopped there, and the two of them looked at each other with their eyes fixed on each other. Ah! 1 second later, a sharp girl rang out. Don't shout for now. Su Hang, the old scumbag, didn't mind seeing this scene too much and immediately comforted him. But the scene was too shocking, and the girl kept shouting. If you keep shouting like this, everyone in the underground garage can hear you. Talking too much is useless, so Su Hang directly kissed the girl's lips. Woo-woo. What are you doing? The girl broke away and wiped her mouth, which was still holding the silver thread, with her hand. Seeing the girl stop shouting, Su Hang began to reminisce with her about everything from last night. The two only remember that they met at a cafe, and after having a great conversation, they found a place to eat. Afterwards, both of them drank too much. As for how they arrived at the hotel, both of them were fragmented and had no memory at all. At this point in her memory, the girl curled up in a somewhat desolate state and looked at Su Hang, asking. What should we do now? What should we do? Su Hang scratched his head, that's it. It is unlikely that Su Hang will take responsibility. Because at this time, Su Hang was still a junior student. How could it be possible to raise a child without graduating from university? However, unlike other college students, Su Hang is a traveler. After arriving in this parallel world, Su Hang became a wealthy young man with a very wealthy family background. It is precisely because of this that he is not focused on studying and indulges in endless play. Seeing that Su Hang doesn't want any further responsible actions, this girl is not a troublemaker either. She also understood that it was just a one-night relationship, and excessive entanglement would be too unsightly. So the girl didn't say anything, and the two of them reached a consensus in tacit agreement. Subsequently, the two of them put on their scattered clothes and left separately. If I had known earlier, I would have had another shot before leaving. Su Hang recalled the girl's perfect figure and shook her head regretfully. Welcome new students. Dragging his suitcase, Su Hang stood at the entrance of the Magic City Jiaotong University, looking at the banner at the entrance and feeling a little emotional. A year is really too fast. In this year, too many things have really happened. The biggest thing was that Su Hang's company encountered a major upheaval and went bankrupt. Su Hang suddenly went from being wealthy to a college student who worked hard and studied part-time. And his parents are also busy running around all day, wanting to regroup. Fortunately, Su Hang is a strong-willed person who won't give up and worry all day just because of these setbacks. This year's experience has actually honed his mind. Make him more calm. Su Hang crossed the crowded crowd and walked towards an office building. He returned to Magic City Jiaotong University not as a student, but as an acting teaching assistant. Suzhou and Hangzhou are already in their senior year. Although they have not graduated yet, they have been selected as acting teaching assistants due to their excellent performance in various aspects. If they perform well enough, they can stay at school and work after graduation. After submitting the documents and completing the procedures at the registration office, Su Hang returned to the dormitory and placed some things. Then, according to the notice from the teacher group, he went to the classroom where he was assigned. Each class is equipped with one supervisor and one teaching assistant. It is very rare for Su Hang to be selected as a teaching assistant before officially graduating. Su Hang only knows the guide he is paired with, named Lin Jia. He has no idea what Zhang looks like or how old he is. Because it is said that Lin Jia was transferred from another university. When Su Hang walked into the classroom, Director Lin Jia had not yet arrived. Seeing Su Hang, the students in the classroom were quiet for a few seconds. Then began whispering. Who is this? Handsome. Isn't it our guide? Not a supervisor, it seems like a senior brother, but he's about to graduate. Maybe he's an acting teaching assistant. Oh, that's right. Listening to the conversation below, Su Hang smiled faintly and began to introduce himself. Hello classmates, I am your acting teaching assistant. My name is Su Hang. I am also a student of Jiaotong University, but I am about to graduate. You can also call me senior brother. You're really a teaching assistant, but you can also be considered a classmate of our Jiaotong University, exclaimed a girl. Another girl then asked, does senior brother Su have a girlfriend? The straightforward question left Su Hang helpless. Just then, a burst of high heels suddenly sounded. A woman walked in from outside the door. For a moment, all the students cast curious glances. The young woman, dressed in professional OL attire, seemed unaffected by the gaze that drifted around her, her gaze indifferent, and her expression calm. Even with a hint of alienation. Who is that? I'm not sure. But this figure, tisk tsk. Don't be so naughty, I feel like an iceberg beauty, it's hard to get in touch with. Well, it does look quite serious. The male classmates stared fixedly at the young woman, unable to help but feel regretful. As they looked at the woman, Su Hang put down his roster and also looked over. His gaze froze slightly. This woman always feels a bit familiar. The woman seemed a bit anxious and didn't see Su Hang. Quickly approaching the podium, she calmly said, hello everyone, my name is Lin Jia, and I will be your future counselor. Counselors are equivalent to class teachers in middle and high school. She continued, in the coming days, I will be guiding some of your majors. The classmates spontaneously applauded, and the male classmate looked at the beautiful guide with starry eyes. Pop 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 pop. Welcome Director Lin. Noticing those gazes, Lin Jia nodded calmly. Immediately after, she began to search through her files and search for a directory of points. But this roster doesn't seem to be included. Lin Jia frowned and became even more anxious. Su Hang, standing beside him, shrugged and handed over the roll call book. He is a teaching assistant whose task is to assist the supervisor in managing the class. Handing over a roster is nothing. Thank you. Taking over the roster, Lin Jia nodded politely. She sighed slightly and then looked up at Su Hang. The next second, she was stunned. Pop. Lin Jia's roster suddenly fell off. Like that morning a year ago, she stared wide-eyed at Su Hang in a daze. Su Hang is also watching Lin Jia. While seeing Lin Jia's face clearly, he recalled some things. Immediately afterwards, Su Hang's expression began to become as shocked as Lin Jia's. The woman who had an accident a year ago actually became my supervisor. The man who had an accident a year ago is actually a student of this school. The two were shocked and looked at each other. At this moment, the classroom was completely silent, and all the students were watching them. What situation does the instructor and senior brother know each other? Not just acquaintances, both of them have slept together. Finally, after finishing class, Su Hang saw Lin Jia giving him a wink. She nodded knowingly, and Su Hang followed behind Lin Jia. The two of them walked silently, one in front of the other. After arriving at the empty rooftop, both of them stopped. Their eyes are facing each other, and neither of them knows what to say. After all, it's been a year since they parted ways, and the two of them have no intersection. Are you okay? Lin Jia first spoke, breaking the silence. Well, it's okay. Su Hang didn't sell poorly or show any affectation, and asked calmly, what about you? This simple question, I don't know which point, touched Lin Jia's heart. Her eyes suddenly began to turn red. Immediately, tears rolled down my cheeks. Sigh. Women are beautiful, even when they cry. Lin Jia was sobbing and choking, tears hanging from her slender eyelashes. Don't cry. Su Hang quickly looked around, afraid that others might think he was bullying Lin Jia. Besides, he doesn't know how to comfort him at all. What happened? Su Hang frowned and asked. Lin Jia took out a tissue and wiped away her tears, caressing her heart and calming her emotions. After a moment of calmness, Lin Jia looked at Su Hang and said seriously, I have given birth to 6 children, all of which are yours. Su Hang. P.S. New book for newcomers, seeking flowers, recommended tickets, tips, and all support. Kneel down and beg. Chapter 2, There is something to say. Don't use the knife. Seeking. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 6 children. This was like a thunderbolt, with a loud bang echoing in Su Hang's ear. Su Hang looked at Lin Jia's slender figure in disbelief. 6 children, what are you joking about? And it's all mine. So, that means, a year ago, that one shot directly hit 6. Su Hang couldn't believe it. He has seen someone who can give birth like this in the news. In real life, I have never heard of it. Su Hang's expression of distrust caught Lin Jia's eye. Lin Jia regained her expression, but couldn't conceal her blush and said, it's what I have after that night. Am I so versatile? Su Hang still didn't believe it. This matter is too explosive. I guess no one will believe it. Lin Jia knew that she was just saying that it was useless to say so. She sighed lightly and gestured for Su Hang to follow her. Su Hang didn't know what Lin Jia was going to do, but in order to figure out the truth, he didn't refuse. The two of them rode Lin Jia's little electric donkey and arrived at a residential area not far from the school. After parking the car, Su Heng followed Lin Jia into Building 8 and arrived at a house on the east side of the 6th floor. After entering the door, Su Heng looked around. It's just a very ordinary 2-bedroom living room, with simple furniture and decoration style. It can even be said that it's too simplistic. Meanwhile, Su Heng noticed that the living room was filled with diapers and boxes filled with baby formula. While Su Heng was observing, the bedroom door opened. A middle-aged woman in her 40s walked out. "Miss Lin is back, it's quite early today." "Well, Aunt Wang, thank you for your hard work." Lin Jia gave a polite smile. Looking at Su Heng's puzzled expression, Lin Jia introduced, "This is my new wife, Aunt Wang." "Hello," Aunt Wang looked up and down at Su Heng, her eyes speculating. "Hello," Su Heng nodded briefly. Aunt Wang looked at the two of them and wisely made an excuse to leave. Subsequently, Lin Jia led Su Heng into the master bedroom. As soon as he entered the master bedroom, Su Heng was stunned by the sight in front of him. "I saw 6 sleeping babies lying neatly on a bed that was not particularly spacious. Each one is like a small porcelain doll, carved in powder and made of jade, carrying diapers, with bare hands and feet." Watching them fall asleep quietly with their eyes closed, Su Heng felt inexplicably calm in his heart. However, even so, Su Heng really had no way to connect himself with the fathers of these 6 little babies. "They are all your children, 4 daughters, 2 sons." "Wait a moment." As soon as Lin Jiagang spoke, Su Heng shouted to stop. He frowned at Lin Jia and said, "How can you prove that these children are mine?" Su Heng didn't say it, but Lin Jia also understood. She frowned and bit her lips, saying, "Of course they are your children." Because I only talk to you. Teacher Lin Jia, we only have one chance." Su Heng shook his head and continued, "And it's been over a year since we last met. How do I know if what you're saying is true or false?" Su Heng's concern is normal. After all, being a father out of thin air is still a matter of caution, and one should not wear a hat to raise children for others. If this is really my own child, I am absolutely responsible. But if not, Su Heng squinted at Lin Jia's eyes. When Su Heng was in a dilemma, he saw something on the nearby table and suddenly had a flash of inspiration. He walked quickly to pick up the scissors and then walked towards the bed. "What are you doing?" Seeing Su Heng pick up the scissors, Lin Jia's first reaction was to block in front of these babies. She looked at Su Heng angrily and said, "You may not believe me, but you cannot harm the child." "Don't worry, I'm not that wicked." Su Heng shrugged his shoulders, then, under Lin Jia's puzzled gaze, he walked around her and used scissors to cut a little hair off the heads of these babies. "What are you doing?" Lin Jia couldn't help but wonder as she watched Su Heng's actions. "I need to verify what you said." After speaking, Su Heng will come to draw paper and carefully pack these 6 strands of hair. After completing all of this, Su Heng turned around and left the room without hesitation, leaving only Lin Jia, who was full of doubts. After leaving the community, Su Heng took a car and arrived at the Magic City Judicial Parent-Child Appraisal Center. Zhou Fan, Su Heng's close friend, works here. When Zhou Fan saw Su Heng pulling out 6 packs of hair, he was momentarily stunned. "This is..." "I have a friend," said Su Heng. "Is this friend you're talking about your own?" "Yes," Su Heng did not deny and directly pulled off one of his own hair. "I'll go, you." Zhou Fan was stunned as he watched Su Heng's actions. A very bad idea came to his mind. "Alright, stop talking nonsense and go quickly." Su Heng waved his hand and urged him to hurry. With current testing methods, the results can be obtained in 3 hours. After staying in the lounge for 3 hours, Zhou Fan rushed in panic with the appraisal report. "Nima, what have you done?" Zhou Fan exclaimed hysterically to Su Heng. Don't talk nonsense. With a frown, Su Heng quickly opened the document in Zhou Fan's hand that he had taken. After testing, the coincidence rate of the 7-point sample is 98.9999%, indicating that the 7-point sample confirms a blood relationship. The Magic City Judicial Personal Appraisal Center, in 2020. Seeing this result, Su Heng felt a big transparency rising in his heart. He never thought that these 6 children were really his own biological children. Shocked. Su Heng felt a bit dejected and sat on a chair, trying to calm himself down. As a close ally, Zhou Fan often gets into fights with Su Heng. But at this moment, he can't even say a word of mockery. Lao Su, you. Hey. Zhou Fan hesitated and didn't know what to say. At this moment, Su Heng probably didn't say a word and just sat quietly in his seat. His family fell behind in the family's financial situation this time, and his parents are still busy paying off their debts. In such an extraordinary period, raising 6 children, is it difficult to die? Thinking about these things, Su Heng's heart became chaotic. Do you have any cigarettes? Looking at Su Heng with a slightly worried expression, Zhou Fan swallowed back the phrase, "Smoking is not allowed in the lounge." Then Zhou Fan took out a cigarette, handed it to Su Heng, picked up a lighter, and lit it with a snap sound. Then the two of them silently smoked. After smoking until the end, Su Heng's mood had calmed down. Since it has been confirmed that it belongs to oneself, we must take responsibility for it. Where are you going? Seeing Su Heng stand up, Zhou Fan asked cautiously. Go back and see my child. Su Heng dropped a sentence and left without looking back. Watching Su Heng's departure, Zhou Fan fell into contemplation. It seems that this matter is not simple. P.S. New book for newcomers, seeking flowers, recommended tickets, tips, and all support. Kneel down and beg. Chapter 3. Results of Parent-Child Identification, Seeking Flowers. Seeking. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Results of Parent-Child Identification. After coming out of the Parent-Child Testing Center, Su Heng returned to Lin Jia's residential area again. Arriving at the door, Su Heng knocked on Lin Jia's door with a complex mood. After the door opened, Lin Jia couldn't help but be surprised to see that it was Su Heng. She thought Su Heng wouldn't come back. Staring at Su Heng for a few seconds, Lin Jia turned sideways and gave way to Su Heng. After entering, Su Heng walked straight towards the master bedroom. On the bed, 6 children are still neatly arranged. They are still soundly asleep, with no intention of waking up. Occasionally, it may be a dream, and a certain doll's calf will give a slight kick. Seeing this scene, Su Heng unconsciously smiled. These children seemed to awaken a sense of tenderness in his heart. It seems to have awakened a heavier but important sense of responsibility. Looking at Su Heng's tender profile, Lin Jia was slightly surprised in her heart. Does it seem like he believes this is his own child? But how could he suddenly believe it? Just because of hair. Lin Jia frowned and quickly realized. Su Heng must have gone for a paternity test, otherwise how could there be such a big change? After seeing the children, Su Heng gently closed the door and followed Lin Jia to the bedroom. Did you go for a paternity test? Lin Jia looked at Su Heng with complex eyes. Su Heng did not shy away. As expected, Lin Jia nodded without any surprise. The two remained silent, and Su Heng looked at the empty milk powder boxes piled up in the living room, frowning and asking. Has the child been drinking milk powder? Lin Jia nodded helplessly. 6 children. Lin Jia's voice paused and she felt a bit embarrassed as she said, I don't have enough water, so naturally I want to give them milk powder. However, I always give children the best milk powder. Speaking of this, Lin Jia's corner of the eye suddenly drooped, his nose slightly blocked, and he said, it's just. 6 children, the expenses are really too high. The remaining milk powder can be consumed for up to 3 days, and a can of milk powder costs over 600 yuan. I can't even afford a can of milk powder with my current money. Lin Jiayue said, his eyes getting redder. Vaguely, Su Hang saw a hint of crystal in her eyes. It is indeed because of the money issue. Su Hang frowned. If it were a year ago, I would have thought that this was not a problem at all, holding a pen to brush and write a check, and that was it. But now, Su Hang feels that this is a big problem. Now he is only a teaching assistant or an agent, as he has not yet graduated and can only be considered as a student assessment, so there is no salary. Even if I need to save tuition for my graduate studies in the future, I can only work part-time to earn my living expenses. Life was already tight, but now 6 more children have arrived. Su Heng felt as if he had an invisible burden on his shoulders, which weighed heavily on him and made him almost gasp for breath. However, the matter has come to an end, and the rest is meaningless. The only way now is to work hard to earn money and let these 6 treasures live a good life. But what should we do in the current financial dilemma? How much does a nanny cost per day? Su Heng asked. EP1 costs 500 yuan a day, while other postpartum women are even more expensive, Lin Jia replied truthfully. After thinking for a moment, Su Heng suddenly turned around and prepared to leave. Where are you going? Lin Jia was a little nervous. Of course I went to make money. Su Heng turned around and smiled at Lin Jia, then turned around and left. Can't we just wait for Lin Jia to support these dolls? After leaving the community, Su Heng walked and pondered. Where are you going to make money? And this money still needs to be settled on a daily basis. After all, we need to quickly find a nanny tomorrow to come and take care of it. Suong was not impatient or panicked, took out his phone and carefully browsed through various recruitment apps. Editing videos for people. Cannot be settled on a daily basis. Going to deliver bottled water. One day is only 150 yuan. Moving bricks on the construction site. Intermediaries also need to withhold. Go to the Dark Horse Club and become him. Su Heng lowered his head and glanced down. The tools are very awesome, but I can be considered a person with a family. Let's just forget about this matter. Suong frowned and continued to check the software. After a moment, he closed the software. There is no more suitable job. Forget it, go earn what you can first, and then talk about the rest. What Su Heng said about earning money refers to his part-time job of coding and writing novels for people. After returning to his staff dormitory, Su Heng opened his computer and started coding. As soon as I started working, time flew by and in the blink of an eye, it was the afternoon. After Su Heng sent the finished manuscript to the editor, he received today's remuneration. 150 yuan. Adding the 300 yuan on Su Heng's body, it's only 450 yuan, and even hiring a nanny is 50 yuan short, let alone buying milk powder. Goo. Listening to the signal in his stomach that he needed to eat, Su Heng frowned slightly. After casually buying something to eat, he walked towards Lin Jia's community again. This time, I didn't take a car. Hiking, saving money. For a moment, Su Heng's heart was filled with mixed feelings. You should know that when I went to a bar before, I spent tens of thousands of yuan a night without even lifting my eyelids. Now thinking of those 6 starving children, Su Heng's teeth are pressing. At the very least, we cannot let children suffer injustice. Ding dong, system binding in progress. A mechanical and electronic female voice sounded in Su Heng's ear. Su Heng was startled and looked around, but did not find any speakers or anything like that. Congratulations, master. The strongest is the DAD system, successfully bound. Does this sound come from within one's own brain? System. As an old bookworm of online novels, Su Heng is naturally familiar with the system. He quickly calmed down his emotions and hurriedly said, "System, introduce yourself." "Yes, master. This system is the strongest father system. As long as you take care of your child, you can immediately receive various random rewards. The specific care methods need to be explored by yourself, master. If you take care of them casually and perfunctorily, you will not receive rewards." Although the system introduction is relatively simple, Su Hang has already understood. Taking care of children can earn rewards. Isn't my current self just the perfect match for this? I not only have children, but also 6. Although Su Hang doesn't know how to take care of children at all, just thinking about the system giving rewards, Su Hang decided to give it a try. Determined, Su Hang rushed to Lin Jia's residential area as quickly as possible. Seeing Su Hang returning so quickly, Lin Jia couldn't help but wonder. After seeing the sweat on Su Hang's forehead, she immediately poured a glass of water and handed it over. Gudong. Su Hang finished drinking in one breath and exhaled comfortably. Looking at Su Hang with a frown, Lin Jia frowned and said seriously, "I didn't have time to say it earlier. You are still an acting teaching assistant and don't have a salary. And you haven't officially graduated yet, so you may need to take the postgraduate entrance examination in school. You should still have project assignments on weekdays, right?" So. Su Hang looked at Lin Jia and before she finished speaking, he expressed his thoughts. "Tomorrow, you can go to work as a teacher as usual without hiring a nanny. I will take care of 6 children." Lin Jia seemed to have heard the Arabian Nights, staring at Su Hang in surprise with black chess-like eyes. "Are you serious? P.S. New book for newcomers, seeking flowers, recommended tickets, tips, and all support. Kneel down and beg." Chapter 4. The Importance of Parental Genes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Well, seriously. Su Hang nodded. Lin Jia bit her lip and had an expression of "impulsiveness is the devil" on her face. She hesitated and said, "Can you do it?" Su Hang nodded again and said, "I used to take care of the children of my aunt's younger brother." Words are self-talk. But it's okay. It's enough to persuade Lin Jia. And Lin Jia did believe it. Xiumei frowned and said, "But you still need to attend class." "We'll talk about this later." Su Hang shook his head and said, "Children are the most important now." Upon hearing the word child, Lin Jia gritted her silver teeth. She bit her fingernails and became entangled. Seeing this, Su Hang sighed and said, "There is always a way to solve academic matters, and now children are the most important. Then I'll talk to Aunt Wang tonight." Lin Jia took a deep breath and made up her mind. She then asked, "Do you want to learn from Aunt Wang before she leaves?" "Sure," Su Hang nodded. "How to change diapers, how to make milk powder, how to soothe children's sleep. I have a lot to learn on my own. If it were normal, I would have already felt annoyed. But this time, it's probably because the child is his own. Not only did I not feel annoyed, but I also gained an extra drive. We must give these 6 children the opportunity to cultivate the proud son of heaven, the dragon and phoenix among the people." Looking at the 6 soft and obedient dolls on the bed, Su Hang felt a warmth in his heart. Next to him, Lin Jia pursed her red lips and asked with a hint of questioning, "Now let's talk about how to solve your homework." Upon hearing this, Su Hang frowned. Lin Jia is a bit persistent in this regard. However, her identity, after all, is one level older than herself. It seems normal to worry about these things. After careful consideration, Su Hang said, "The first 2 weeks were military training, and I don't need military training. Let's talk about the rest later." Lin Jia furrowed her eyebrows and hesitated when she heard the words, saying, "Why don't you invite your sister? Law. You haven't seen anyone since you first came to school, and it's not very good. Moreover, you still need time to get to know those students. Moreover, Taking care of the child takes a lot of time and will definitely delay your studies. Lin Jia said, as if thinking of the current predicament, her eyes slightly red. Seeing Lin Jia thinking so much about himself, Su Heng suddenly felt a little heartbroken. This woman is also stupid. I am not afraid of dying from exhaustion. He racked his brains again and finally came up with a compromise solution. In this way, I will rest at home first. As for the rest, if taking care of the child is really unavoidable, I will use other methods of teaching, such as finding someone to live stream on my phone. Live classes. Lin Jia was taken aback for a moment, then nodded and said, this is indeed a solution. There's no need to trouble your classmates. I'll help you live stream. Are you coming? Su Heng was somewhat surprised. Lin Jia, a dignified guide, held up his phone in the classroom and helped him live stream online, which made Su Heng feel strange even thinking about it. However, Lin Jia firmly insisted. That's settled. At this stage, I'll be responsible for making money, and you'll be responsible for taking care of the children. Looking at Lin Jia's serious expression, Su Heng suddenly felt a bit amused. It's not mockery, he thinks Lin Jia is a bit cute. A very petite woman, but her inner strength is not ordinary. Su Heng suddenly felt a little relieved. The mother of these 6 children is a caring and strong woman like Lin Jia. Think about it too. This woman seems to have never felt sorry for herself from beginning to end. Okay, that's it. Su Heng said and quietly walked to the bedside. Haha, the delicate sound of breathing makes one's heart tremble. The 6 dolls on the bed were still spreading their little hands and feet, sleeping soundly without any signs of being awakened. It has to be said. These 6 children are really exquisite in appearance. White and tender skin, long eyelashes, a petite nose, and a pink mouth. It's simply an upgraded version of those internet celebrity kids on the internet. The genes of parents are indeed very important. There was a doll with the smallest body size, blinking her eyelashes, wrinkling her small nose and sneezing before continuing to sleep soundly. Su Heng's gaze was instantly gentle. The presence of these 6 children, although making him feel a lot of pressure, also makes him feel warm. Perhaps this is the wonder of blood ties. Although you can't hold it yet, you can touch it. Lin Jia saw Su Heng's expectations and whispered a reminder. Su Heng's hand on the bed stiffened for a moment, then slowly lifted it up and placed a finger on it, poking towards the cheek of the baby closest to him. At the moment when his fingertips touched the child's skin, Su Heng's hand froze again. The soft and smooth touch made him afraid that one mistake would hurt the child's face. Seeing Su Heng so cautious, Lin Jia standing behind her snorted and couldn't help but laugh. Don't worry, he's not as fragile as you think. Su Heng smiled and shook his head, saying, compared to me, they are indeed very fragile. These children are loved from the bottom of their hearts. In my own eyes, these children are just porcelain dolls and must be treated with care. Have you really taken care of the child? Lin Jia felt a bit worried when she saw Su Heng being so cautious. With a light cough, Su Heng said calmly and blindly, the child I took care of back then was older than them. Older children are much more resilient than them. Pushy. Su Heng's words once again made Lin Jia laugh. Rubbing the slightly red corners of her eyes, Lin Jia pursed the corners of her mouth and smiled with curved eyebrows and eyes. The beauty smiled, and heaven and earth faded. Especially for beautiful women who rarely smile, it makes their hearts tremble with laughter. Su Heng also curled his lips and asked, who are the girls and who are the boys? The 6 children look too similar, with different sizes. I really can't distinguish it myself. I forgot to say it. Lin Jia coughed awkwardly and walked quickly to Su Heng's side. As she approached, Su Heng immediately smelled a faint fragrance. The elegant taste instantly calms one's mind upon smelling it. Pointing to the child closest to Su Heng, Lin Jia said, from here to there, they are sorted from the eldest to the 6th, and their clothes are labeled with numbers. Upon hearing these words, Su Heng raised his eyebrows. Number on clothes. There's something. Lin Jia saw his thoughts and blushed as she said, I'm afraid my sister.in.law might make a mistake because each baby has a different personality, temperament, and appetite. I understand. Su Heng nodded. Lin Jia coughed lightly and quickly continued to introduce, the eldest is a boy, the second and third are girls, the fourth is a boy, and the fifth and sixth are girls. After introducing the child's gender, Lin Jia blushed and looked carefully at Su Heng, hesitating, there's one urgent matter that hasn't been resolved. What? Su Heng was curious. Lin Jia's red lips moved slightly before whispering, the child's name has not been decided yet. P.S. New book for newcomers, seeking flowers, recommended tickets, tips, and all support. Kneel down and beg. Chapter 5. High Cute Critical Strike. This is what a strong man should be. You are listening at novelfull.audio. With just one sentence from Lin Jia, the two fell into silence. Su Heng looked at Lin Jia thoughtfully and said, where's the nickname? Lin Jia didn't turn her head and said awkwardly, for the sake of memory, the first one is called De Bao, and the second one is called Air Bao. Then the third is called San Bao, the fourth is called Si Bao, and the fifth and sixth are called Wu Bao and Lu Bao. Su Heng said with a sweat. What is the difference between this nickname and names like Dog Egg? The child is young, I don't know if it's okay. When I grow up and know, I still have to cry to death. Thinking about calling his 20-something boss De Bao in the future, Su Heng felt his scalp tingling. Let's think of a name first, Su Haidao said. Lin Jia frowned and said with obvious embarrassment, I'll name it Fei. Looking silently at Lin Jia, Su Heng sighed and said, do you have a dictionary at home? Yes, there is. Lin Jia nodded. She looked at Su Heng in confusion and then asked, why are you looking for a dictionary? Su Heng stood up slowly and chuckled, of course it's for naming. Naming. Lin Jia was taken aback and looked at Su Heng with deep suspicion. She always felt that Su Heng's idea was a bit off. But she couldn't say what was wrong. After a moment of silence, Lin Jia still handed the dictionary to Su Heng. As parents of their children, Su Heng and Lin Jia held on to the dictionary and began naming their children. Half an hour later. In the room, Su Heng and Lin Jia each pointed to an idiom. Su Heng. This one is still suitable. Lin Jia. No, I think this is more suitable. Su Heng frowned and said, choose between two. Lin Jia pursed her lips and said, how do we choose? We can't just use scissors, stones, or cloth, right? Just scissors and stone cloth. Su Heng said, extending his fist. Lin Jia remained silent for a few seconds, then extended his tender white fist. Scissors, stone cloth. With Lin Jia's shout, both of them punched at the same time. Su Heng's are scissors. Lin Jia's is cloth. With a flick of her lips, Lin Jia felt a bit disheartened. Taking a glance at her aggrieved expression, Su Heng suddenly felt as if he shouldn't be so concerned with her. Although she is already a mother. But based on my own observation, as a guide, I am still quite delicate in private. With a sigh, Su Heng simply said, those who lose will be responsible for naming. Lin Jia's eyes lit up noticeably. However, she deliberately concealed her excitement and coughed lightly, I didn't expect you to be quite a gentleman. It's okay, Su Heng nodded. With children and Lin Jia, I will definitely not be like before. My top priority now is to take care of Lu Bao and Lin Jia. Yu Xiao Yen Ran, our daughters are called Su Yu, Su Xiao, Su Yen, and Su Ran respectively. Lin Jia smiled contentedly and then looked at Su Heng, saying, what are the names of the two sons? Su Chen and Su Zhua, please. Su Haidao. Let them calm down and protect their sisters more. Sure, a good name. Lin Jia was even more satisfied. After this interaction, the sense of unfamiliarity between the two has decreased significantly. Su Hang even had an illusion. I and Lin Jia have been old husbands and wives for many years. Let's use the original name instead of the nickname. While Su Hang was lost in thought, Lin Jia suddenly proposed. Su Hang frowned, feeling a bit inappropriate. But Lin Jia seems to have gotten used to these names. It's more convenient, Lin Jia said. Just as Su Hang was about to open her mouth, she suddenly added, the name is simple and easy to support. Isn't it easy to make a living by relying on reputation? Su Hang is helpless. Seeing Lin Jia looking at him eagerly like a little girl, completely devoid of the dignity from the previous podium, Su Hang's heart softened once again. Forget it. Who wants to eat soft instead of hard? But now that I think about it. Although Lin Jia and I are not married, we can still be considered husband and wife, right? Su Hang smiled faintly and suddenly said to Lin Jia, Teacher Lin, you can also take care of the children, and you are already my wife. Don't let my sister-in-law teach me how to take care of our children. Come and teach me. Old wife. Lin Jia's face turned red. She stepped back 2 steps and looked at Su Hang in shock. How could you call me that? Watching Lin Jia's reaction, Su Hang laughed and wanted to tease her even more. He quickly stood up and pressed himself in front of Lin Jia, staring at the rosy and delicate face. He smiled and said, Is there nothing wrong with our relationship now? You. Lin Jia trembled all over when Su Hang teased her. She wanted to show her usual dignity and scold Su Hang not to make such jokes casually. But with one mouth open, the voice was soft and soft. We're not married yet. Upon hearing this, Su Hang frowned and pinched his chin, pondering. Not getting married yet is indeed a problem. Firstly, you need to find a suitable time to tell your parents about their relationship and these 6 dolls. Secondly, I don't want to get married so perfunctorily. Lin Jia is a woman who deserves to be treated well by herself. The matter of getting married, we. Just as Su Hang was about to answer, a cry suddenly came. Wow! Su Hang turned around and found that Lu Bao Su Ran had woken up. The baby was flapping its legs, desperately nibbling on its chubby little hands while sobbing. Her chubby little hands tasted delicious as she nibbled on them. Su Hang suspected that there was honey on it. Not only that. Lu Bao's watery big eyes were filled with tears, which hung on his eyelashes and trembled as they moved up and down. My cheeks bulged, slightly tinged with red. High cute critical strike. Su Hang took a deep breath and felt his heart stopping. Before, when I saw a child crying, his first reaction was to be annoying. But now when he saw his daughter crying, his first reaction was how cute this baby cried. Sure enough. Taking care of the baby, this is what a strong man should do. P.S. New book for newcomers, seeking flowers, recommended tickets, tips, and all support. Kneel down and beg. Chapter 6. Children Need Nutrition. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Su Hang was slightly dazed by the cuteness of Lu Bao, Lin Jia quickly stepped forward and picked him up. Be good, be good. Lin Jia gently shook Lu Bao while starting to walk around the room. The delicate and gentle voice of coaxing the children made Su Hang feel that Lin Jia in front of him seemed to have added another kind of temperament. That is the unique temperament of a mother. Shouldn't our 6 treasures change their diapers now? Lin Jia looked at Lu Bao, who had been crying and sobbing all along, and nervously glanced at the other 5 children. She breathed a sigh of relief when she saw the other children still sleeping. Fortunately, I didn't wake up your brothers and sisters, she said, placing Lu Bao Su Ran on the bed and checking for wetness. Seeing that diapers were dry, she frowned immediately and waved her hand to Su Hang. You go out first. Suddenly being kicked out made Su Heng a little puzzled. He took 2 steps closer to Lin Jia and said, "Why did you let me out? I will be responsible for taking care of them later, so I can take advantage of this opportunity to learn." "You can't learn this," Lin Jia replied with a stiff expression. Su Heng took a closer look and found that her neck was already red through. A tender red color that extends all the way to the tip of the ear, adding a touch of cuteness to the already small ears. The child follows the mother. They are all equally cute. Su Heng chuckled lightly and leaned his hands around the chest against the nearby cabinet, saying with a smile, "Why can't I learn?" Because you don't have it." Lin Jia's words are a bit tough. It's just a feigned toughness. As she said these words, Su Heng clearly noticed that her face also turned red. This woman is really funny to tease. Su Heng couldn't help but smile again, becoming increasingly curious about what Lin Jia had said. "I don't have it myself, and I can't learn it. Is it Hei Nai?" Su Heng's gaze drifted and landed somewhere on Lin Jia's body. "Got it. Where are you looking?" Lin Jia noticed Su Heng's gaze and completely exploded. "It's not because of anger, it's because of shyness." Su Heng can say without exaggeration that Lin Jia has already become extremely popular. Seeing Lin Jia staring at her like a stuffed cat, tightly pursing her small mouth, Su Heng pointed to her and squinted with a smile, "Director, is the agreed-upon food not enough?" "You. How do you know I'm going to feed you?" Lin Jia looked at Su Heng in shock, holding her hands tightly in front of her. Su Heng's eyes sank, and the meaning of his smile was profound. "Is this still a guess?" Sensing the meaning in his eyes, Lin Jia immediately rushed to him and pushed a pair of small hands in front of him. "You go out quickly. If Lu Bao continues to cry, De Bao and the others should be woken up." While speaking, Lin Jia desperately put on a serious appearance. But in Su Heng's opinion, her reaction was even more interesting. Okay, I'll go out." Su Heng chuckled and made a surrender, then smiled and said to Lin Jia, "Do you need to make some milk powder? After all." 6. You. Lin Jia punched Su Heng in the chest with a small fist and said shyly, "If you say such things again, just go back to class and don't take care of De Bao and the others." "Cough, stop making noise." Su Heng coughed lightly and said with a serious expression, "This sentence is serious. Do you need to make milk powder? I'm worried you can't take it anymore. Feed Lu Bao himself enough." Lin Jia stared at Su Heng and pushed him outside the door. Bang! The door is tightly closed. Su Heng glanced at the tightly closed door in front of him and shook his head helplessly. "As a guide, I am really shy." Su Heng smiled lightly and turned towards the dining table. At the dining table, Aunt Wang has already prepared the food and is placing bowls and chopsticks. After thinking for a moment, Su Heng walked straight to Aunt Wang and said, "Aunt Wang, can you teach me how to make milk powder? Do you want to learn?" Mrs. Wang looked at Su Heng with some surprise. Nodding, Su Haidao said, "As a father of children, I want to learn more about how to take care of them." "What a good man." Aunt Wang patted Su Heng's shoulder with satisfaction and led him to the nearby low cabinet to take out the milk powder. She opened the jar inside. "When I first came here, I saw Miss Lin alone with 6 children, which scared me so much. I've never seen someone so capable of giving birth before." Su Heng nodded in his heart. "I never expected myself to be so fierce." On the side, Aunt Wang continued to mutter. "You don't know, she was taking care of the children day and night at that time, and she was so thin that she lost her shape." Turning her head to look at Su Heng, Aunt Wang continued, "At that time, I guessed why the child's father didn't take care of him together. I had something to do before and just came back recently." Su Heng casually gave a perfunctory reason. "I can't say that I just found out I have children, right? It's good when you come back. With a smile, Aunt Wang didn't ask much. She knew she had said enough. Besides, for a month-old sister-in-law like her, it's a bit over the top. However, Su Hang has already remembered her words in his heart. He will not forget Lin Jia's previous hard work. In the future, he will definitely give Lin Jia and the children the best life. While Su Hang was pondering, Aunt Wang had already put on disposable gloves. She picked up the spoon from the milk powder bucket and said to Su Dao, "This spoonful of milk powder can be used to make 30 milliliters. De bao and si bao are more edible. For boys, they need to eat 4 spoonfuls of milk powder each time, which is 120 milliliters at a time. They need to eat 6.7 times a day, with an interval of 3 hours between each time. Air bao, san bao, and wu bao also need to eat 3½ spoonfuls of milk powder each time, which is equivalent to more than 100 milliliters. It is also 6.7 times a day, with an interval of 3 hours between each time. If they were 5, this can of milk powder would take about a day and a half to eat." Aunt Wang added one last sentence. Su Hang was stunned upon hearing this. Is it difficult to eat a can of milk powder for just 1½ days? Is it so edible? He glanced at the only 2 cans of milk powder left and felt a sense of crisis again in his heart. If you don't make any more money, your children will starve to death. P.S. New book for newcomers, seeking flowers, recommended tickets, tips, and all support. Kneel down and beg. Chapter 7. Waiting for my wife, can you teach me? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Taking a breath, Su Hang felt like he was burdened again. Before he had a practical understanding, he didn't have a definite concept of the cost of milk powder in his mind. After understanding it, I realized how terrifying the expenses were. On average, 1,200 in 3 days. If it were in the past, I wouldn't even blink my eyes. But now this 1,200 is my monthly expenses. What about the 6 treasures? Su Hang looked at Aunt Wang. The 5 treasures mentioned earlier were all mentioned, but the 6 treasures were not mentioned. After sighing, Aunt Wang said helplessly, when Lu Bao was born, he was a bit malnourished. Miss Lin said that the doctor suggested giving Lu Bao breast milk to enhance her resistance. So it's like this, Su Hang frowned. Really, if 6 are born at a time, there will definitely be malnutrition. To be honest. It's just malnutrition, it's already fortunate enough. Su Hang breathed a sigh of relief and once again felt guilty towards Lin Jia and his sons and daughters. But it's useless to think about these things now. You need to figure out a way and see what you can do to motivate the system to reward you. Let's start with making milk powder. Feeding the child is also considered taking care of the child. Su Hang looked at Aunt Wang and said, "Aunt Wang, let me give it a try." Line. Aunt Wang happily handed the milk powder spoon to Su Hang. Looking at the milk powder emitting a strong milk aroma in front of him, Su Hang carefully scooped a spoonful. It's all money. Aunt Wang, can we just pour it into the bottle? Su Hang looked at the milk jug on the side, and Aunt Wang shook her head. No, you can't just pour milk powder into the bottle. The order of preparing milk powder is absolutely not wrong. Firstly, pour a small amount of hot water into the bottle and keep the water temperature between 40 and 60 degrees. Too hot can damage the nutrients in milk powder and easily burn children. If it's too cold, it can easily have an impact on children's digestive system. Aunt Wang said, pouring a steaming stream of water into the bottle. Su Hang was a bit confused when he saw it. He then muttered to himself, should I prepare a thermometer? Thermometer. What thermometer? Lin Jia, who had already finished breastfeeding, happened to open the door and heard Su Hang's words. Looking back at Lin Jia, who was still holding Lu Bao, Su Hang pointed to the bottle and said, it's not easy to control the temperature when preparing milk powder. Prepare a good thermometer. Pushy. Upon hearing this, Lin Jia couldn't help but smile. How could it be so troublesome? Originally in her arms, Lu Bao, who was obediently gnawing on her small hands, seemed to have been infected and also grinned along. Eh. Upon hearing the soft and tender moans, Su Heng felt his heart melt. He walked quietly to Lin Jia and looked at the 6 treasures in her arms, wishing he could take them and give them a hug. A cute and adorable little doll, it's simply too cute. But Su Heng is afraid of hurting Lu Bao. 6 treasures, which are only 2 months old, are not big in themselves. Because of some malnutrition, her physique is the smallest of all her brothers and sisters. However, it can be seen that Lin Jia has fed her well. Lu Bao's round face bulged, his cheeks flushed, and his big eyes blinked with water. When she saw Su Heng, her eyes straightened for a second, and then she grinned again. A cherry-sized little red mouth, babbling and shouting over and over, while spitting bubbles. She kept staring at her meaty legs in Lin Jia's arms, looking very excited. It seems she can sense that you are her father. Lin Jia said with a gentle smile. Su Heng was taken aback and suddenly felt a little moved. When you first meet your child, you can quickly develop a sense of familiarity. He had to sigh again. Bloodline is really wonderful. Carrying the soft and cute critical blow from Lu Bao, Su Heng couldn't help but extend his finger towards Lu Bao's little hand. Feeling Su Heng's touch, Lu Bao's small fleshy hand, which was originally clenched into a fist, suddenly opened. Then he gave a smack and grabbed Su Heng's finger. The warm and soft touch made Su Heng take a deep breath. It's so cute. He couldn't help but praise. Lin Jia pouted and smiled, don't you see who gave birth to it? Indeed, my instructor. My wife is awesome. When Su Heng mentioned the word guide, he quickly changed his tone. After all, Aunt Wang is still standing on the side. Elderly people have poor acceptance ability. And he is not clear about Aunt Wang's character. If someone who enjoys gossiping would reveal this matter, it would be troublesome. It doesn't matter to oneself. Now, I wish the whole world knew that Lin Jia was my wife and these cute dolls were my own sons and daughters. But I don't want Lin Jia to be hurt. Rumors and gossip are always terrifying. Lin Jia blushed when Su Heng said, wife. She was afraid that Su Heng would notice her shyness, so she quickly turned around. Seeing this, Su Heng smiled but didn't say anything. Aunt Wang couldn't help but laugh as she watched the interaction between Su Heng and Lin Jia on the side. I'll go in and take a look at the other dolls. You two haven't seen each other for so long, so let's reminisce about the past. After Aunt Wang finished speaking, she quickly entered the bedroom. Regarding this, Su Heng couldn't help but give a thumbs up. Aunt Wang is quite good at watching the atmosphere. But Lin Jia is really too shy. As soon as Aunt Wang left, she became even more silent. After a moment of silence in the restaurant, Lin Jiatsai blushed and said to Su Daodao, aren't you going to learn how to make milk powder? Hurry up and learn. Yeah, Su Heng shrugged helplessly, but no one taught me. There are teachings on the internet. Lin Jia turned her head and glared at him. She knew that Su Heng was intentional. However, in Su Heng's eyes, her glare appeared very delicate. There's no way. Who made her previous serious image collapse in front of her? Lack of internet is unreliable. I'm waiting for my wife to teach me. Su Heng looked at Lin Jia with a teasing expression. Besides, if I follow the internet to learn, if I make a mistake, wouldn't it be a waste of milk powder? We have so little milk powder now, and this milk powder is expensive. Alright, stop talking. Lin Jia turned around and looked at Su Heng angrily, can't I teach you yet? P.S. New book for newcomers, seeking flowers, recommended tickets, tips, and all support. Kneel down and beg. Chapter 8. Simultaneously feeding 6 children, breastfeeding is like fighting. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 8. The temperature of this hot water is not enough, it needs to be replaced. Add 4 spoons of milk powder, and then shake the milk powder well with hot water at this temperature. Shake well and let it cool. Let it sit at around 37 degrees Celsius, and the babies can start drinking. Under the guidance of Lin Jia, Su Heng steadily operated step by step. A few minutes later, he had already prepared the first bottle of milk powder. The milky white liquid in the bottle is slightly hot to the touch. Su Heng frowned and said seriously, "Indeed, we should still buy a thermometer." "No need." Lin Jia's mouth curved slightly and said, "If you want to try the temperature, just squeeze a little on the back of your hand. If it's hot, just let it cool down for a while longer. If it doesn't feel hot or cold, then it's just right." "I understand." Su Heng carefully memorized it in his mind. He almost took out a small notebook and wrote down every stroke. Because he didn't forget the requirements of the system. Take care of children carefully. If you speak perfunctorily, there will be no reward. However, Su Heng will not be perfunctory when it comes to treating his own children. Let's continue to charge towards the back. Lin Jia saw Su Heng's agile movements and felt a small admiration for him. When she first made milk powder, she was in a hurry. When I finally prepared the milk powder and finished feeding the child, I was completely exhausted. Just as Su Hengxue was full of enthusiasm and preparing to continue with the next bottle, the mechanical female voice rang out again. Ding! Congratulations to the owner for completing the achievement of brewing the first bottle of milk powder, with a reward of 20,000 yuan. The achievement reward has been sent to your bank account. After adjustment, your funds are completely safe. Hiss. Su Heng listened to the sound in his ear and never thought that the sound of this system was so pleasant. I brewed a bottle of milk powder and surprisingly earned 20,000 yuan. In the short term, there's no need to worry about the money for baby formula. But 20,000 yuan, including the cost of milk powder and diaper, seems to be enough to last for 10 days. Su Heng's calculation suddenly made him feel that these 20,000 yuan were nothing. But finally there is hope. Continue to work hard to take care of a few baby dolls and continue to receive system rewards. Life will always be good. But has it really been credited? Su Heng took out his phone with suspicion. At this moment, the text message prompt sound came on. Ding! Su Heng opened the text message and saw that the balance in his card had increased from 450 yuan to 20,450 yuan. 20,000 yuan received. Awesome! Su Heng's mood suddenly improved. Lin Jia, who was standing beside her, curled her lips and asked in confusion, "What are you talking about?" With a chuckle, Su Heng said with a clear mind, "It's nothing, I'm thinking about money." Money. When it comes to money, Lin Jia immediately frowned and looked bitter. In the past year, every time she thinks of money, she gets a headache. There's no way. Whether it's during pregnancy or raising a child now, it's too expensive. She didn't feel much about this before. Now she finally realizes the hardships of being a parent. Su Heng saw Lin Jia's small face and was almost wrinkled with worry, not wanting her to think too much. After glancing at the time, he changed the topic and said, "When was the last time the children drank milk?" "Let me take a look." Lin Jia said and calmly glanced at the hands on the clock. The next second, her expression froze and her face suddenly changed. "Hurry up, it's too late." She let out a coquettish shout and quickly placed Lu Bao on a relatively wide sofa to lie down, wrapping things around her. Confirming that Lu Bao was safe, she quickly returned to Su Heng's side. "We need to prepare the milk powder as soon as possible," she said, picking up a bottle. Su Heng was puzzled and frowned. "What's wrong?" The first second was pretty good, but why was it so urgent the next second? Lin Jia quickly brewed milk powder in her hand and anxiously explained, it's almost time for the children to drink milk next time. What's so urgent about this? Su Hang became increasingly puzzled. Looking at him with a heavy expression, Lin Jia shook her head and said, feeding 6 children at the same time is definitely not as simple as you think. How do you say that? Su Hang smiled. It's not mockery. He really doesn't understand. What's the trouble with feeding the child? Isn't it just putting the pacifier in the child's mouth and letting them drink? Lin Jiaxiu frowned and was about to explain to Su Hang. The next second, a loud cry suddenly came from the bedroom. Wow! The confident crying made Lin Jia's body tremble suddenly. She was stunned for a second, and her hand movements quickened once again. The next few bottles of milk, she didn't even wait for them to cool naturally, but directly added some cold water and forced it to cool down. Su Hang was just trying to persuade Lin Jia to slow down and not burn his hands, when another cry sounded. Wow! Immediately afterwards, several other dolls also began to cry. Su Hang calculated based on the different cries, and all 5 babies in the bedroom woke up. It seems to have been infected by them. Originally on the sofa, Lu Bao, who was playing happily while pedaling his calves, also burst into tears. Wow! 6 deafening cries echoed through the roof. Su Hang was directly stunned. Sleeping trough, this voice, this impact. It's like having a nuclear bomb directly hitting my forehead. At this moment, Su Hang finally understood Lin Jia's words. It's not easy to feed 6 children at the same time. It's not just because children cry loudly. Due to the rush for milk powder, the scene also became chaotic. Su Hang couldn't help but sigh about this. Feeding 6 children at the same time feels like fighting. P.S. New book for newcomers, seeking flowers, recommended tickets, tips, and all support. Kneel down and beg. Chapter 9. I really can't do it. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. With a buzzing brain, Su Hang quickly regained his senses. He glanced at Lin Jia, who was sweating profusely in a hurry, and quickly helped to make milk powder together. Bang! The bedroom door was pushed open. Looking through the probe, Aunt Wang was equally anxious and sweating profusely. Miss Lin, have you prepared the milk powder yet? I can't calm down here anymore. Almost. Lin Jia's hands are constantly moving. If it weren't for the 5 children in the room who needed to be watched over, Aunt Wang would have rushed out to make milk powder together. But it's okay. With the help of Su Hang, Lin Jia's pressure suddenly decreased a lot. 1 minute later, 5 bottles of milk powder were successfully brewed. Su Hang and Lin Jia tried the temperature and confirmed that it was suitable. They immediately rushed into the room with a bottle in hand. Putting down the bottle, Lin Jia looked at Su Hang and anxiously said, "Can you help Aunt Wang feed the Bao and his team? I'll go and bring Lu Bao in." Okay. Su Hang nodded and handed Aunt Wang a bottle with nimble hands and feet. But just as Su Hang was preparing to breastfeed him, he froze. These little arms and legs, I have never held such a small guy before. I dare not take action. Based on my simple understanding, a child of this size has not yet grown a firm skull and neck, and other parts of their body have not yet grown strong. If your hand gets heavy or accidentally touches it, Su Hang dare not think. Mr. Su, what are you still waiting for? Aunt Wang looked anxiously at Su Hang. 5 children, she's really struggling alone. The crying of the children in her ears, who had become impatient due to hunger, made her also become impatient. Su Hang felt a bit helpless. He looked at Aunt Wang and said with a bitter smile, "I wouldn't hold such a small child." "You're like me," Aunt Wang said and gestured to Su Hang for a hug. I saw her holding the back of the child's neck with one hand, letting the child lie half on her lap. With the other hand holding the bottle, place it in front of the child at a 45-degree angle. Wu Bao, who was held in her arms, was desperately stirring up his pacifier. The amount of milk in the bottle is steadily decreasing. Okay, let me give it a try. Su Heng gritted his teeth and reached out his hand to Dabao Su Chen. Dabao has the largest physique and is also a son, so he should be able to resist more trouble, right? Su Heng thought to himself, carefully reaching his hand towards the back of Dabao's head. But after touching the soft and tender flesh, his movements froze again. No way. Even a boy is too tender. I really can't do it myself. You sit down, I'll help you. As Su Heng's hands remained motionless and his movements stiffened, Lin Jia's voice suddenly came from behind him. He gestured for Su Heng to curl up one leg and sit down. Lin Jia put down Lu Bao and quickly picked up Dabao, smiling uncontrollably at Su Haidao and saying, "Extend your hand." Su Heng reached out his hand. Immediately after, a soft ball was placed in his arms. Dabao in his arms seemed to be interested in Su Heng for the first time and suddenly stopped crying. Dark little eyes stared at Su Heng for a while, then burst into tears. He is really hungry. Woo-woo. Woo-woo. While choking up, Dabao stuffed his little fist into his mouth, as if wanting to use it instead of a pacifier, seeking some comfort. Holding on to Dabao's soft, tender, and warm little body, Su Heng's heart softened and immediately took the bottle handed over by Lin Jia. Seeing the bottle, Dabao's eyes lit up instantly. He kept waving his two little hands, his eyes eagerly looking at the pacifier. I'm quite smart, I know this guy is eating. Su Heng chuckled lightly and handed the pacifier to Dabao's mouth. Bark. The small mouth, which had not yet grown teeth, bit into the pacifier, and Dabao immediately sucked desperately. Guji. Guji. Seeing him satisfied with his drink, Su Heng unconsciously curled up the corner of his mouth. Looking at this scene, for some reason, a strong sense of satisfaction suddenly arose in his heart. Maybe is this fatherly love? Lin Jia, standing beside her, saw that Su Heng was breastfeeding her child more smoothly than she had imagined. She hugged Er Bao and smiled, saying, Dabao and Er Bao have always been the most obedient and quiet among the children. I cry every time I'm hungry, but I don't cry very badly. If you're really hungry, you'll eat your own hands. After finishing my milk, I also behaved obediently and rarely cried. Lin Jia felt a bit heartbroken when she said this. She loves every child. But there are always times when we can't balance things. Sensing Lin Jia's tone, Su Heng comforted her and said, maybe Dabao and Er Bao know they are older brothers and sisters, so they need to be more calm in their personalities. After speaking, he immediately said, can you tell the personality of each child now? I can barely see it. Lin Jia tilted her head for a moment and said, Dabao Er Bao, as I just said, is quite quiet. San Bao, although she's a girl, she's a bit mischievous. Four treasures words, poop. Speaking of the four treasures, Lin Jia couldn't help but laugh. Sibao is the most naughty of the brothers and sisters. I remember once when Aunt Wang changed his diaper, he accidentally sprayed Aunt Wang all over. Is there such a thing? Listening to Lin Jia tell some interesting stories about the children, Su Heng couldn't help but laugh. Suppressing a smile, Lin Jia continued, Wu Bao is usually very well behaved, but how to put it? It feels like his personality is a bit complicated. I don't know if it's my illusion, but when I hold her and play with her on weekdays, she doesn't react much. But sometimes she can be very clingy. Lin Jia said, frowning. Su Heng was taken aback for a moment and laughed first. Isn't that just being arrogant? Follow mom. In Su Heng's view, Lin Jia is just a proud and delicate person. Although she is a little woman, she must pretend to be cold and serious. But one thing is good. She always unconsciously takes off her disguise in front of herself. What about the 6 treasures? Su Heng asked with a smile. Speaking of Lu Bao, Lin Jia's mood instantly became heavy and she sighed. I'm not very confident about Lu Bao's words. P.S. New book for newcomers, seeking flowers, recommended tickets, tips, and all support. Kneel down and beg. Chapter 10. Isn't it about meeting parents? You are listening at novelfull.audio. How to say it? Su Heng said as his eyebrows furrowed. He hopes that each of his children will grow up safe, healthy, and happy. Which one has a problem is not what he wants to see. Lin Jia habitually bit her fingernails and said, Lu Bao is quite timid and clingy. Moreover, she doesn't want to hug Aunt Wang, she only wants to hug me. Lin Jia finished speaking and sighed again. She reached out and gently caressed Lu Bao's face, and the little doll immediately grinned. Su Heng can tell. Lu Bao really likes her. Even if she doesn't hold Lu Bao and just touches her face, she will smile happily. Is this situation very serious? Su Heng frowned. After feeding Sanbao, Aunt Wang beside her patted him with a burp and helplessly said, It's really serious. Sometimes Miss Lin is not around, and Lu Bao wants to sleep. I coax her to sleep, and she can keep crying. Crying until the end, I was out of breath and holding my breath. The one you showed me feels heartbroken. Upon hearing this, Su Heng looked somewhat surprised at Lu Bao, who was still playing with Lin Jia's fingers while flapping his calves. He thought Lu Bao just didn't like to interact with outsiders, but he didn't expect the problem to be so serious. This little guy. It can also be considered a little stubborn temper. After pondering for a moment, Su Heng handed the big treasure that had not yet hiccuped to Lin Jia, and then said, Let me give it a try. Lin Jia looked at Su Heng puzzled. Su Heng approached her and leaned down to look at Lu Bao, saying, Let me give her a try and see if she is willing to come with me. This. Lin Jia hesitated as she bit her red lips. Su Heng smiled and said, You're still sitting here. If she cries, I'll leave it to you to soothe her. And I'm her father. Su Heng raised his eyebrows and looked at Lin Jia. Why? Don't you believe in the father-daughter relationship between us? No, I'm afraid Lu Bao will cry and you'll be hurt. Lin Jia's ears turned red and she hummed softly. Before Su Heng laughed at her, she quickly changed the topic and said, You give it a try. After all, after Aunt Wang leaves, Su Heng has to take on the heavy responsibility of taking care of the children. Now let him get used to each other with the children. After Lin Jia finished speaking, he picked up Lu Bao and guided Su Heng in the correct arm posture. Su Heng smiled at the situation and said, What the instructor teaches is good. Director. Aunt Wang looked at the two people in surprise. Before Lin Jia was in a hurry to explain, Su Heng smiled and said, She taught me how to take care of children, which can be considered my mentor in this area. I see. Aunt Wang nodded thoughtfully. She thought they had that kind of relationship. That's really amazing. Lin Jia saw that Su Heng was still teasing him at this moment and gave him a shy and angry glare. As if to counter Su Heng, her tone of voice suddenly became much more serious. Since you want to learn, you must study hard. With a light cough, Lin Jia placed Lu Bao in Su Heng's arm. If you're not studying seriously, be careful, I'll assign you homework. Ha ha ha. Listening to Lin Jia's somewhat childish threat to himself, Su Heng couldn't help but laugh. Listening to Su Heng's laughter, Lu Bao, who had just entered his arms, was clearly stunned. Seeing this, Lin Jia and Aunt Wang were both nervous at the same time. Lin Jia quickly poked Su Heng's shoulder and urgently reminded him, Don't laugh, scare Lu Bao. They are afraid that in the next second, Lu Bao will cry directly. Upon hearing this, Su Heng nodded and looked at Lu Bao with equal caution. When he first entered Su Heng's arms, Lu Bao didn't have any other reaction, just remained motionless in a daze. The unfamiliar aura seemed to make her a bit nervous. The already petite body shrank again, almost turning into a ball. Due to her neck not being firm enough, she couldn't turn her head to look at her mother and could only stare at Su Hang, who was still somewhat unfamiliar. Black and round big eyes, blinking and blinking. A pink and tender little mouth, slightly pouting. Lu Bao's weight is much lighter than Su Hang thought. After holding the Bao, he finally realized how petite Lu Bao was. This little guy is as light as a feather in his arms. Looking at Lu Bao's somewhat nervous and curious expression, Su Hang felt a pang of heartache. He suddenly leaned forward and lightly touched Lu Bao's small nose with his own tip. Eh. Lu Bao opened his mouth in a low voice. Thinking that Lu Bao was about to start crying, Aunt Wang quickly stepped forward and prepared to stop her. She was stopped by Lin Jia before she could say anything to stop it. Lin Jia's eyes remained on Su Hang and Lu Bao without blinking. Just as Aunt Wang was feeling uneasy, Lu Bao, who was originally a bit nervous, suddenly giggled. Yeah. She laughed and desperately raised her little hand, trying to grab Su Hang's hair. Feeling the small hand waving back and forth on his face, Su Hang's mouth began to rise. Looking at Su Hang's smiling face, Lu Bao's small mouth also curved again, excited and kept babbling, as if talking to Su Hang. Seeing that Lu Bao not only did not reject Su Hang, but was instead amused by Su Hang, Lin Jia's nose soured and her eyes suddenly turned red. Perhaps her emotions are still in a stage of easy fluctuation. Seeing this scene, she was suddenly moved. Actually, before this, Lin Jia had doubts. Is it right to recognize Su Hang by oneself? He is so young, can he shoulder the responsibility of being a father? Seeing this behind the scenes, Lin Jia had no doubts at all. She understood. Su Hang is not a big boy, he can already take on the responsibility of being a father. I am truly a father and daughter. Aunt Wang watched the interaction between Su Hang and Lu Bao on the side, surprised but also somewhat envious. She definitely spends much more time with Lu Bao than Su Hang. But Lu Bao just doesn't recognize her. Saying it doesn't hurt is fake. On the side, Su Hang pulled his hair out of Lu Bao's little hand and looked at Lin Jia with a smile. How's it going, wife? Is your husband amazing? Lin Jia's face turned red. Don't turn your head. Just try to be strong. Without realizing it herself, she assumed the title of wife to Su Hang. But Su Hang noticed. This woman is once again proud and coquettish. Su Hang smiled and suddenly felt that the timing was right. He then said, wife, I'm afraid you'll need to go out with your husband next. As Lin Jia blushed, she asked somewhat unnaturally, do you have anything to do? She definitely doesn't like the term wife. She just can't refute Su Hang's face in the presence of Aunt Wang. That's right, that's it. Lin Jia whispered a few words in her heart, forcefully suppressing her shyness. Su Hang didn't expose her and nodded solemnly, it's a matter of great urgency. What's the big deal? Lin Jia frowned. Su Hang's tone of voice made her unconsciously nervous. At the same time, a bold idea loomed in her heart. He doesn't know. Is he taking himself to see his parents, right? P.S. New book for newcomers, seeking flowers, recommendation tickets, tips, and all support. Kneel down and beg.